She's Katy Montgomery. He's Justin Joseph. These best friends are serving subpoenas to bad advice weekly with Wrong Way Forward. Now, here's Katy and Justin.
Hi, and welcome to Wrong Way Forward. My name's Katy Montgomery, and I'm here with my best friend, Justin Joseph. And we are returning after Thanksgiving. Justin, how was your break?
You know, it was great. As I mentioned before, we went to Las Vegas, and then we flew and got the great puppy that everybody has heard about if you've listened to our podcast. And so I'll apologize in advance if you hear anything. I've got her on a very large bone, which she has been really good with, but she can also move through them quickly. And then there's a choking hazard. So I'll maybe rushing off camera. You can also see my setup is different because her cage is right here. So if all goes well, maybe I will introduce her to the show afterwards. How was your break?
It was good. But, one of the things that I noticed is we had some very cold and rainy weather. So there was some indoor time. And I found myself spending an inordinate amount of time on my cell phone. This was despite being with my sister, who's my best friend and clearly family. And it started me thinking about, am I having a hard time being bored? Just sitting with my thoughts, coming up with things to do. And is the default becoming my phone? And so I think that's what we're going to talk about today. Is that potentially the wrong way forward? And hopefully by the end of today's session, we'll have a right way forward, or at least for me. And I'm hoping that I can make some statements about trying to get off of that phone. And so this kind of group and our listeners can hold me accountable in the new year.
Yeah. Let me ask you at the starting point, have you always, I've known you forever, obviously. And so what I would think about you, how I would think about you when you and I spent a lot of time together back in college days is that you were always on the go. You were more engaged. Back then we talked on the phone, right? We didn't even have text messages, right?
Right.
So we would talk on the phone, and I remember you were a talker on the phoner, not a huge one, but you were always doing things. And is that still how you are today?
Definitely. I think that I'm, a busybody and I like to kind of keep myself engaged. But what I have found is that a solo act of doing one thing is no longer enough. Mm-hmm. So I have find myself watching TV and I'm also on my telephone.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not purely invested. And that's why sometimes I find taking a really long international flight so relaxing because I don't have access to my phone and the internet. And so I can be completely present in that one activity I'm doing rather than constantly multitasking. And I think the phone has given me a crutch, to kind of get that adrenaline pump or to kind of, not deal with the anxieties. It's just replacing it or projecting it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you about that because you're also a big reader. And would you say that the number of books you have read has gone down because of the phone, because you're not as much time on that?
I think yes, but I have now moved from reading books to listening books. And I have a good friend who works at a bookshop and buys books, and she says that does count. I do not think it's a one-to-one comparison. So I'd say I've probably listened to 50 books this year. But again, I think that shows you that I'm having to do 2 or 3 things at once. I'm having to exercise and listen to a book. I'm having to go run errands and listen to a book. I'm not sitting down with the book and being completely present in that one activity.
Well, here's also why I know that to be true, because the other thing you told me when you were here visiting is that you listen to books on speed.
Yes.
Meaning they're not just at normal time, they're at time and a half or 2 times, which does kind of play into the you need to be overstimulated.
Justin, pot kettle. You have to be completely stimulated all the time also.
Yes.
So I'd like to know
can't
that
read
question.
because if I start reading, my mind is off to something else. And if it was on speed, I would really be in a different place. I couldn't do it. I actually tried doing it after you told me that. I hadn't heard about that, and it was way too much for me.
Well, I love it. 1.5 is my speed. There we go.
All right. So today we are going to talk about whether we are spending too much time on our phones. And I love this topic because Josh Banker, my husband, I would hate to see his phone traffic. You get the weekly report. He is on his phone constantly. It's sort of become a point of it, not any more than it always has, but he's just always on it. We can be watching a movie and I look over and he's on his phone. And so anyway, so we're going to start today with advice from Michelle Obama, who talks about living in the moment. And we both, I'll speak for myself and we can listen to the advice, but I think it is the wrong way forward.
Life is full of bumps and bruises. I tell my girls the greatest gift that they can have develop for themselves is the ability to be to be happy where you are, wherever that is. To learn how to be like, this is not exciting. I'm not winning. I'm not losing. I'm not achieving. It's not a party. I don't have friends around every day. It's like most of life is just the nothing in the middle.
But she's talking about, this is the advice that she gives her daughter. They need to learn how to be bored, to learn how to live in the ordinary. What are your thoughts on that?
This is something that I actually agree. I remember being a kid and going up to my mom, like in the summer and being like, I'm bored. And my mom's response was, well, Katy, only stupid people are bored. And, and I think
Love your mother.
ridiculous.
You can put that statement in front of anything. Only stupid people are, whatever.
And my mom did not have an affinity for stupid people at all. But I think there is something to be said about being able to kind of sit with yourself, sit with your thoughts, be able to open your mind to kind of be creative, to be able to play. And I think having to have constant engagement and having kind of inputs constantly coming in to keep you engaged, I think it is, it's, some people would argue, the dumbing of America. And I think, it's really interesting. I've been listening to the book Unbroken by Laura Hildebrand. It was also a movie and it's fantastic. And you talk about these people who, in World War II were, very well-rounded, really deep thinkers, and excellent problem solvers, were able to sit with a problem and be incredibly resilient. And I'm just finding that not being able to be with boredom, I see myself jumping and changing and maybe not sticking with things like I used to. And so I think that's probably some good advice. What do you think, Justin?
I think it, like most of the advice we cover on the show, I think it's an oversimplification. You can't just say we all need to learn to live in the ordinary. And the reason is, I think it's an oversimplification. I think life is about, in those moments, what are you teaching yourself to step into? And so, I'm a big believer in, if you're ever bored, you're not taking risks. You're not going out there and doing the next thing. And so I think that's how I was raised. I never asked my mom, is there anything I can do? Or what was the question you asked your mom?
I was just like, Mom, I'm bored. I would just make a statement.
I was never bored. I mean, I had clubs and I played Wonder Woman and I played G.I. Joe. I had a neighborhood spy club. So my mind was just constantly working. And so I never got bored. As I get older, I find that even when I don't have something to do, I've tried to live in that moment, especially in real estate. Like if my phone's not ringing, I'm panicked that the next deal's not coming through. And I've really had to try and take a moment to say that's okay. But I'm still saying, what else can I do? Can I go to the movie to occupy that time? So maybe I need to be doing it as well.
Yeah. And I think again, it's interesting because it sounds like you're trying to fill, you're trying to avoid being bored, which I think is the opposite of what she's saying, is that if we can just sit in that moment, things can kind of develop and happen. And so I think I probably am similar to you, that it's like, feel it, do it, stay busy, go join a club, have something else to do. And we've gotten into this kind of multitasking, constantly moving, needing all these inputs, trying to follow the next bright light, that what are we missing by being kind of completely present and sitting in the space? And why are we so uncomfortable with being bored?
I think that nails it on the head, because I'll speak for myself. You're right. It is a filler. I'm looking for something to do. And I think that the issue is I don't want to sit and deal with the fact that my phone isn't ringing, or that they're whatever else the other things are. I think that nails it on the head. I still disagree with the fundamental advice that everybody needs to learn to live in the ordinary. I still think, my favorite people are people who live life in the extraordinary, whatever that means for them. Those are the people I think you connect with. Those are the people I think I connect with. And I think that's what makes life exciting and fulfilling. Agree with that?
I guess agree with a twist. You know, it's this idea that you have to constantly be extraordinary, that you have to constantly be multifaceted and interesting. I mean, I don't want to be around a bunch of duds, but what is this kind of constant chase? And I think extraordinary, ordinary, these are so um, subjective. And what might be extraordinary for one person is not for someone else. And so, Scott Galloway, who I really kind of admire, has been talking a lot. And he teaches at Stern Business School at NYU. And he says the absolute worst advice you are going to get in this MBA program is follow your passion. And he's like, that's utter bullshit. What you need to do is figure out what you do well and then get even better at it. And I think to me, kind of, chase the extraordinary, not the ordinary, and things like, go follow your passion. I think that kind of goes back to platitudes. I think that's really simplistic, kind of not nuanced kind of advice.
I agree. And obviously, I need to deal with this animal that's on my left hand. So we're going to take a break. And on the other side, we're going to take up this conversation and talk about how social media plays into all of this. We'll be back right after this.
Thanks for streaming Wrong Way Forward, the weekly reminder that advice is usually free for a reason. We call out bad advice wherever it hides: boardrooms, break rooms, and even book clubs.
Enjoying this dumpster fire? Like, subscribe, and check back every Thursday for new episodes. Want us to roast your favorite piece of nonsense? Email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to include your contact info. We're not psychic, just judgmental. And now, back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katy and Justin.
And we're back. And we've been talking about, can we just be present in the moment? And I think something that's very relevant to this is one thing that has been keeping us from being present in the moment is social media and cell phones. And I don't know if anybody's been following, but I had read a book by Jonathan Haidt called The Happiness Hypothesis years ago. And he has a lot of new kind of work around what he calls the anxious generation. And he's been doing a lot of anti-smartphone kind of advocacy. And Justin and I were both born in the 70s. And then it was just children had free reign. You went out, you rode your bike. Justin played Wonder Woman and was in a spy club. I played
the spy club, by the way.
What did you say?
I was the head of the spy club. Cloak and Dagger was the name of it. Do you remember that movie? You probably didn't ever watch that movie.
No, I didn't watch that. I did play interior decorator, and we went to Joyner Elementary, and they passed out all of this Army stuff. And my sister and I played Army recruitment, and we asked 2 questions. Do you wet the bed, and are you gay?
And I wet the bed till I was like 13, and I was gay also.
I wet the bed forever, and it's a sign of intelligence.
Is that true?
100%, because we have a fellow bedwetter friend in common. I'm not going to name that person. And we've seen the research. It's a sign of incredible intelligence.
Well, my mother's so anal and type A that every morning she would come in, and if the bed was wet, she would lay black plastic trash bags over it and pin it in with those pins, and they would be pinned all around. So I slept in trash bags until I was 13 years old. And my brother had this beautiful furniture set, and I was not permitted to get new furniture until the bedwetting stopped. And
that's terrible. My sister said that they promised me to give me not a Rubik's Cube, but a Rubik's Snake. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. Like, you don't pee in the bed, we'll give you for a week, we'll get you a Rubik's Snake. I never got it.
But the other thing was I was not allowed to sleep over because I was so mortified that I was going to piss the bed in someone else's house.
I can't believe I'm about to say this out loud. But we took a road trip. I don't know if you were part of that trip, but I can think about who was there. We stayed at somebody's apartment in Atlanta, and I pissed her bed in college.
What did you do?
I pissed the bed.
I know, but what did you do? Did you tell her?
No, I think I tried to cover it up. I might have taken a hairdryer in there, probably.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. And that reminds me, in my early coming out days, I had this group of friends and we went to Vegas one weekend. And anyway, I think somebody dropped an ecstasy tab and we were staying at someone's house, at their mother's house, and he was sleeping in their parents' bed and pissed the bed in her parents' bed. and we had to get her out of the house because we were going to do laundry, and it was like the great operation to keep this in. She never said a word about it, so probably never.
Justin, do you remember that after school special with this really good looking guy and he played football, but in high school he was still wet in the bed? And one day he came home from school and his mom had taken his sheet and thrown it out the front window and hung it down like a flag with a big pea stain on it. And he was with all the popular people and he came home.
I did not see that. Again, I was outside playing
that, and I'm like, please don't let my mom get any ideas from this.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Okay, we've gotten way off topic.
Back
to the anxious generation. You've just made me anxious again.
Okay, there you go. We'll try to sit with it and not multitask or look at your phone. So basically in the 70s, we were free reign. And what Jonathan Haidt says is that around the 1990s, we kind of lost this idea of childhood play. People became, really kind of skeptical of institutions. Trust in adults stopped. And so kids started to stay inside and they started to, play on Atari, video games. They also started to kind of watch TV. And then in 2010, the cell phone comes along. And about 2010 to 2015, we see this generation. And right around kind of 2017, people come out and go, wait, this is bad. This is really bad for kids. But then what happened is on the cusp of that, COVID happened. And the cell phone usage just pumped up. Parents were working, they needed to, multitask. They give the kids an iPad, which is crazy because I read this kind of stat and I almost fell out of my chair that 40% of American 2-year-olds have their own iPad.
40% of American 2-year-olds. Okay.
Yes. And so basically what they're saying is that they're asking kids now, why are you depressed? And they're saying it's social media. And
Right.
This kind of comment is being confirmed by parents, teachers, therapists, and pediatricians. But I think what really kind of hit me is I'm a child of the 70s. I had the free play, and I am finding myself spending a lot of time on my phone. I'm finding myself defaulting to my phone. And I really want to do something about it. And when I'm talking to parents, they're saying it's a real issue. Some are wishing they never gave their kids one as early as they did. Others are saying, who have younger children, are like, I'm going to try to wait until they're 18. And maybe when they're in high school, they're going to get a flip phone. But I'm wondering what's the right way forward? And Justin, do you think it's the wrong way forward for me to consider maybe a detox in the new year?
No, I have friends who've done the detox. I guess they've done the detox from social media. And Karina Delaney may have met her at a launch party. She does that regularly or did that regularly and spoke how freeing it was. I can speak to it in this standpoint is that, I was on Facebook for many, many years and I got hacked last year and I didn't have two-factor authentication set up and I couldn't get back in and someone took over my Facebook. And long story short, I tried everything. I hired an ethical hacker to hack me back in. Facebook would not cooperate. It was a nightmare and I finally gave up. And so I don't have Facebook to this day, or I do, or someone does for me. Anyway, and that has been freeing that I don't have to have that. Now I check Instagram all the time. I'm on Instagram all the time, but I really have backed off even on posting on that. And so I think it's the right way forward. There are apps you can get that kind of measure your usage and can limit you for you. Have you heard about those?
Well, I've actually purchased the brick, so I have not implemented it. It is something. So I think, in the new year, I want to plan on doing that. But, we're kind of in a predicament here with Wrong Way Forward. I mean, the way that we get word out is through kind of social media channels. And so, I've gone from having, an Instagram account. I like to do Instagram. I've kind of returned back to Facebook. I was off for kind of a while. But now we have, Wrong Way Forward, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube,
TikTok.
TikTok. We have Buzzsprout that kind of gives us all of our stats. And so that's another reason that my kind of phone consumption has gone up because I'm wanting to check all of those,
Right.
and I'm getting that kind of dopamine hit. Oh my gosh, we just hit another country. And so,
And what'd you say to me yesterday when we were talking about the Thanksgiving holiday? You said, We didn't post last week at TikTok, and TikTok emailed me and said, you're down 100 views.
Yes.
I mean, that's them. That's their dope, right? Their heroin.
Yeah. And so it's, so what is the answer and what is healthy? And, and particularly now, it's not just as individuals, but as companies, as foundations, as organizations, we've even just seen it like, are nonprofits going to survive without social media campaigns on Giving Tuesday? So what's healthy here?
Well, and I think what is healthy is you kind of nailed it on the head is, this COVID is when all this blew up. This was a means of connection. Even to this day with Wrong Way Forward, I have reconnected with so many people from college that I hadn't heard from in years. And so that I think is what's healthy about it. It can be reconnection. The downside, and I'll speak for myself, is that it also, the whole, you'll when people post, the reason behind the post is to say, usually, look at me. And so in real estate, if I'm scrolling through and I'm seeing a realtor post all of their sales, it's making me feel badly that I don't have that. And so I have to recognize that in that moment, that just because they're posting doesn't mean that I don't, that I'm not successful. But that's the downside for me of it, is it can make you feel less than.
Right. I agree. So why don't we take a break? And when we come back, we know that a lot of times when you say something publicly, you put it out there, you tend to have a lot more accountability. And so when we come back after the break, I'd like to make some kind of public announcement about what I hope will move me from the wrong way forward with my cell phone to the right way forward. So we'll be back in just a moment.
Thanks for streaming Wrong Way Forward, the weekly reminder that advice is usually free for a reason. We call out bad advice wherever it hides: boardrooms, break rooms, and even book clubs.
Enjoying this dumpster fire? Like, subscribe, and check back every Thursday for new episodes. Want us to roast your favorite piece of nonsense? Email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to include your contact info. We're not psychic, just judgmental. And now, back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katy and Justin.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Wrong Way Forward. This week we're talking about social media, its positives, its negatives, the idea of living in the moment, being okay with stillness, which is, if you know Katy or you know me, that's a really difficult thing to do. And so Katy's going to highlight some statistics, and then she teased going into the break that she's going to make a public commitment about social media. I don't know what that is. We'll see what that is. One other thing before we talk about that, we also have our text line. You can text us as you're listening to the show. Just reference what you're talking about and give us your thoughts, and we will talk about it in our next episode. Our text line is 720-251-4450. Again, that's 720-251-4450. Text us your thoughts. Katy?
Well, I just wanted to kind of reference a Stanford study that really wanted to kind of answer how is social media affecting our emotional state. And what they did was they got
either they're having an affair or they're just very shy.
It was over 1,000 people who quit Facebook and Instagram for 5 weeks before the 2020 election. And what they found is they had improved levels of happiness, decreased anxiety, and decreased depression. So the data is out there and it's showing us. And so, what I would like to do, and I just wanted to kind of veer off a little bit. I don't know if you've been seeing the Christmas commercials from Meta.
I haven't. I know that. I remember them last year.
They're very clever. The idea is it's like it's a Secret Santa. Somebody goes in and kind of pours through someone's Facebook and finds out that they were a fan of the band Kiss years ago, goes on Facebook Marketplace, finds Kiss salt and pepper shakers, and gives this really unique gift. It goes back to connection. So they know that they're being attacked, but they're talking about the benefits you were talking about, is reconnecting with people, really connecting on that kind of cellular, personal level. And what I want to do is remind myself that primarily what I am doing on social media is doom scrolling, getting caught up in, just reading kind of worthless stuff. And I'm over shopping. And I think it would reduce some of my impulsive shopping because I see something, it's cute, it's easy, my credit card's connected, and things are happening kind of in real time. So what I would like to do, and again, I'm giving myself this for the new year, I would like to, limit myself to maybe 2 15-minute kind of social media scrolls a day. That would limit me to 30 minutes, on the phone. And I'm going to use this device, the brick, and try to figure out how that works and try to set that up. So I'll be doing no more than 30 minutes per day of kind of that useless kind of scrolling. And I want you to kind of hold me accountable, Justin.
I will. And tell me more about the brick. I hate the name of the brick. It makes me feel like I'm going to sink to the bottom of the ocean with it.
It's just a little plastic kind of disc.
And it's a real brick. It's an actual item?
Yeah, it's a plastic kind of brick. And what happens is you hold it up to your phone. And then I think it kind of triggers that kind of, blocking certain apps. So I could go in and I could block Facebook, YouTube. I'm still not an active TikTok user. We've only done it for purposes of Wrong Way Forward. And so I've been very hesitant because I've heard that is a very bad place to go when you will get sucked in very quickly. But you can put alerts on that will close down certain apps. You could still use it for the maps and for your finances and for your email.
So it literally will not let you access. Once you hold that device up, it does some magnetic thing, and it will not let you access those apps. Is that what you're telling me?
I believe. Now, mind you, I've had this, and I haven't followed through with setting it up. But I think
and
that's
you suck at tech too. So
you also,
the brick is probably literally a brick. It's something that has nothing to do with this.
It's not that big. I've also before had where I put it in a timed safe. Mm-hmm. I did that some in Singapore during COVID, but that's more annoying because if you need to get into your email or if there's, a work call, you have to kind of override it. But I think this is the plan. And I'm just really interested in knowing, and you can either, text us or send us an email at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Are you seeing that you have an issue with this? If so, what's the right way forward? Is it the wrong way forward to, kind of limit? And what are the potential, positives and negatives of taking this step?
And again, as Katy said, you can text us at 720-251-4450. Take the challenge with us. I guess I haven't committed to it yet. I need to investigate what this brick is. I will say this. For me, my issue is television news. I mean, I can watch television news on the loop. And during the election, I made the choice to turn it off, and I knew that impacted me positively. And so for me, that's as you talk about doom scrolling. That's as doom scrolling as actually being on a social media app. So I will limit that as well with you. I'll join you on that, and I'll take the pledge also once I figure out what this brick thing is.
Good. And with that being said, also, we're open to anything else. Any other fellow bedwetters out there? Any kids who kind of, ruled the neighborhood, anybody who actually thinks, staying inside and kind of, the lonesome kind of path works for them. We'd love to hear from anyone and everyone. And so just drop us an email or drop us a text.
And we're also going to be looking at our top 5 moments from our 15 episodes of Wrong Way Forward. If you have a favorite one, shoot us a text, let us know. And we're going to be recapping those, talking about those in our final holiday episode of the year. So we'd love to hear from you on that as well.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on next week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. Bye, everybody.
All right, that's a wrap on this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. Remember, the only thing worse than taking bad advice is giving it.
If you've liked what you've heard, like, subscribe, or follow us wherever you stream podcasts. And if you've got a topic or need some advice we'll probably regret giving, email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward.